I will call to order this June 30th meeting of the Committee on Administration. Call of the roll, all supervisors are present. And then if we could approve the meeting minutes from May 27th.
Second.
All right, any corrections or additions to the minutes? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, any public comments today? Like we have a full house of people I know. And then before we get into staff reports, without objection from the committee, I would like to move item 7E, our operational planning, down to the bottom so we take care of that last. So any staff that need to head out before then could. And since we do have that operational planning, as we go through the monthly staff reports, instead of going one by one, we'll just take it as a group and say, is there anyone with questions for any of the departments from their staff reports? Right. And then I will also say, is there any department heads that had anything to add to their reports?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that really just came up yesterday. Well, a little bit, a couple of weeks ago, but the OMB at the federal government is looking to change some of the rules around federal grants and how those grants are managed, which could lead to clawbacks or the cancellation of federal grants with very little notice. So the National Association of Counties and Wisconsin Counties Association are looking to have every county submit comment to in an open comment period, which ends on July 13th. So we're working on that. I grabbed a template from that NACO had put together and started filling that out and working with department heads to get that filled out, to get that submitted by the end of the week. But could be some significant impacts. We have some federal grants, but for the most part, we are a subrecipient through the state to federal grants. But either way, it does impact us, whether it's through the state or not. So, and one of the requirements is, as a recipient of a grant, you need to hold subrecipients accountable. So, lots to go on there. So,
and there's additional rules about subrecipients as well that would add extra burden.
yes.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Will this offer any type of a backstop, the state, on some of our grant proposals and the money that we need to operate?
No.
As like a backstop, or yeah, it's not really cuts. It's as you saw recently with some other clawbacks, is any grants or any agencies that aren't necessarily complying with executive orders or other things could nullify your qualifications to receive that grant, either as a recipient or a subrecipient.
And it would remove the appeal process.
So yeah, I think the big thing about it is it gets hard to budget and rely on these funds when they could be taken back at any time. So it's putting a lot of risk on counties and other recipients of these grants as we put positions or other things towards these monies. Not to mention the administrative burden to demonstrate that you are meeting all of the requirements. One of the requirements is a relation to activities that take place on the grounds owned by a subrecipient. So there could be something that happens at a fairground that doesn't align with a federal mandate, which would make us ineligible to receive a grant because it happened on grounds that are owned by the county. So lots of risk related to that. So I think it's a matter of just educating everyone on what those impacts would be at the federal level. So something that's moving very fast.
Thank you. Something not nearly as important. I'm just trying to educate myself, new on the committee. I think probably the 8th page in the packet, that's financials. Non-salary operating expenses, the amended budget was 217,000 and just through the end of May is way more than that? I don't understand.
That's what I caught.
Yes.
Explain,
Yeah.
please.
I'd have to dig into the specific expense lines. Some of that is likely due to the ERP and the costs associated with the ERP. We did just pay for the travel and hotel time for the implementers that had gone through that system. So that non-salary operating expense for the financial or for finance, that is a very big number. That would not be their normal number. It includes the ERP costs, the ERP implementation costs. So a little bit over budget on the implementation of that was allocated to that area. I actually think that the expenses might be in the wrong spot, but that's
Okay, so it's
ultimately what that cost is. We just paid, I
Okay,
think, $70,000 or something like that for the implementation.
so it's an unusual number.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was me.
Yep.
So, and things have just been paid up ahead of time rather than being spread out through the year.
Yep.
And there was more than expected for the budget.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. So moving on, there is nothing for item 6 because we have plenty of other things. 7A, approval of vouchers. So we have the May 2026 vouchers for review. Any questions or a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All right. I did have one question myself in here under IT for Civic Plus, social media archiving subscription for almost just over 7,900. Just wondering if that might be annual or what length.
So that was Archive Social. That's annual subscription. And that's the tool that, so if you're unfamiliar, government social media is a public record. So any comment that anybody makes or we make on social media, we need to store that and archive copies of that because they can be requested at any time in the future. So that's the tool that tracks all of those comments and stores them so that we can retrieve them if needed.
There's a charge to Valley Feeds labeled prisoner food. That seemed a little odd.
The sheriff is here.
I believe that would be the chicken feed.
For the chickens, okay.
For the chickens.
Okay.
not the inmates.
All right,
Okay.
thanks.
That's where we buy it anyhow.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, I mean, the chickens are captive there as well. So, okay. All right. Any other questions? All in favor of approving the vouchers for May 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the FTE amendment for Program Assistant in Emergency Management. Is there any questions or if we have someone to kind of go through that?
Okay, so I will give some background around this, but any detailed questions, we do have our Emergency Management and Communications Director here to answer as well. So this request came out of the Emergency Management and Communications Department. I think initially prompted due to the funding source for this role being held up at the federal level. I believe normally those funds are dispersed at some point in the first quarter of the year. We still have not received them. So there's been a lot of discussion and review of the duties within the planning section of that department, and ultimately led to the director's request to eliminate the .7 program assistant position that is currently within the department. There is currently an incumbent in the role. There have been ongoing discussions with this individual, so we made sure that they knew that this would be of discussion tonight. But ultimately, looking for the committee's authorization to amend that FTE from .7 to 0, effectively eliminating the position within the department. And we would be looking for an effective date of July 31st, which would provide the individual with about a month's notice.
Questions?
I know in our discussions moving forward, we're talking about moving people into other areas of the county. Is this individual encouraged, or is there a possibility of this individual working in the county in a different position?
Yes, yep. As part of our notice to this individual, we will go through the available positions that are currently posted. She is will be encouraged to apply for whatever she's qualified for or interested in.
Questions, or could I get a motion to approve? Last call. Any other clarification or questions need? All right, in favor of approving the FTE amendment for the program assistant in emergency management, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. Next, moving on to the approval of FTE amendment for caseworker, social worker, and human services. As we have Jenna continuing, not having to walk back and forth.
Yes, so again, I will introduce this, but we do have our unit managers here as well as our human services director to answer any direct questions. So this request is for an additional 1.0 FTE for a social/caseworker that would be working with the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program. And we did do a full deep dive on the funding and how it works with this program, and we're able to identify that it is nearly 100% funded. There's just a maintenance of effort amount that the department has to pay every year. But essentially this position is able to bill for the services provided within that program. And the reason for the ask is the number of cases increasing, and there is an expectation with the state level that there isn't substantial wait lists. And so they are looking to alleviate that concern with this ask. Anything that the unit managers or Paula would like to add to that?
I would just say, as we went through our threats in our last week, we had, acknowledged workforce capacity, and I think this is a clear example of that. Right? Any questions or a motion?
I have one quick question. Is this, by having this additional individual on here, what would their caseload be? Additional caseload be? Okay,
Oh, there you go. I'm Paula Winter, and I'm the Director of the Human Services Department, and I'm Casey Pogorelski. I'm the Unit Manager. And so Question was that what they would be doing, and that, do you want to talk a little bit about the number of cases that they cover and how this impacts?
Sure. So for new staff, we like to start them at 25 cases, and it's an 18-month training program typically to get them to 35 cases. This is a very difficult Medicaid waiver program that requires a lot of precision and detail, understanding Medicaid rules and also the waiver rules. We did just receive a resignation, and so the 31 cases that are sitting on that new workers caseload will be taken by me until we can hire a new person to relieve her. We also have had 92% increase in referrals from January to June, and we have a 45-day timeline to screen and an additional 45-day timeline to enroll. And if we don't meet those timelines, there could be a financial issue with our reimbursement. Right now, we have 100% reimbursement through state funding. So to answer your question, it would be a full 35 probably to start. I would probably take about 10 off that new worker's plate and
Okay.
do that case management myself.
Okay, so we're still, even with the addition of this person, we're still going to be short the capacity to handle the load that we currently have. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, and we currently have a person on FMLA that has been on FMLA since February.
Are there any plans to maybe offer the hiring of another position or begin training somebody in-house, to maybe pick up some of that load?
That's an excellent question. I did make a request of the 2027 budget to add another worker in this program because of the number of cases going up, the referrals for kids with disabilities. And so we're projecting that to be needed in 2027. So looking at that as well.
We'll look forward to see the funding on that.
Yeah. Well, it's funded through the Medicaid program, so that should help support that. Does that make sense? Yeah.
This might be a speculative question, but the work rule changes and stuff like that, will that be impacting this at all?
No, this is a Medicaid for kids with disabilities. So the kids that have disabilities are able to have their families apply for Medicaid underneath the disabilities, and are eligible then for Medicaid to be able to cover these services. So the whole program's purpose is to keep kids in homes instead of institutions. So, supporting families, helping them with the different medical equipment that they might need that Medicaid doesn't typically cover for, supports in the home, those kinds of things to keep them in the home. It could, help them with a home remodification. If they can't get into the bathtub, what do we do? So we do a lot of those types of things for children with disabilities. And the other thing I just want to comment on is that it also helps many of our other programs in our department. So kids that are in foster care, many of them have disabilities because parents are challenged to be able to handle all the needs of, special needs of kids with disabilities, and it becomes too much. And so we do have many kids in our foster care program or in the child protection program that receive these services that helps us to then maintain them or return them back home or maintain them in a foster care level instead of an institution. And so this program really impacts that as well. It helps save money in that program. So it's got a lot to it. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you go. And just thinking about the CLTS program, when I started as a worker in 2015, we had 2 CLTS workers. We now have 8, and it has not increased our county levy to have those workers included. Typically, we have about $1.5 to $2 million worth of services for free that's run through the state for our children in Dunn County. And it's kind of alarming that 2.25% of our population is in the CLTS program in Dunn County, but need about $2 million worth of services. We divert from institutions. Our program also pays for foster care, portions of foster care. So over the last 4 years, we picked up $250,000 from our family and children's unit. We're trying to build a birth to 3 dual worker because birth to 3 is county levy heavy. And we have about a $22 higher rate that we can be reimbursed for. And so that can really bring a big impact to the birth to 3 program, removing some of those additional costs that are levy heavy. Right now, we're sharing about 60 cases between the family and children's unit and the birth to 3 unit. And so those costs are coming to the CLTS program, but we won't be able to continue to enroll and continue to find these children that need to be enrolled where we can move those costs to the children's long-term support waiver.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have. You guys have had a pretty big job to do, and I'm glad you're doing it.
Could you speak just to the difference between caseworker and social worker for this?
Sure. So a caseworker does not have a license or certification and is hourly, and a social worker does the same exact job but is salary and gets paid at a higher rate.
So we could get somebody in as a caseworker, they could work on their licenses to become a social worker.
Absolutely.
Motion? Yes. Yeah. We're gonna take a motion. Okay. Okay.
Move forward on this.
I'll second.
Okay.
All right. So all in favor of approving the FTE amendment for the caseworker, social worker in human services, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the approval for use of contingency funds, the match for the daily use radio grant program. If we could get a little background from our sheriff as we have him.
All right, it's in the packet, in my written request kind of lays out the money savings. We have committed, well, the county board signed a resolution to commit to WISCOM 2.0, we're calling it. It's the new statewide system. We're currently on the old system. It's been failing since we went to it in 2015. So the state is building a new statewide radio system. L3 Harris is the provider for that. L3 Harris is offering a 60% discount on their radios now, plus this grant. And the reason for this request was we put in for a grant that the state will pay 80% of that 60%. So essentially we're getting $12,000 radios for under $1,000. And this is the commitment, our match portion of that. We were awarded 100% of the grant, which kind of took us by surprise. Melissa's office took care of that countywide. So that's $128,000 is the sheriff's office, my first responder program, and the ME's office radios that would cover both Marcy's office and my office. So, like I say, the county board initially, before we applied for the grant, signed a resolution, committed to funding the county's portion of this. Unbeknownst to us, we were awarded 100% of the award that the grant that Melissa's office put in for. And so now it's kind of time to pay up so we can install these radios and be prepared for when they roll out WISCOM 2.0 in 2027, we're hoping, but more than likely 2028.
Yeah. And this is a much better price tag than if we had to pay full price?
Agencies, counties are paying millions and millions of dollars to build their own radio systems right now. This is the cheapest option, and St. Croix County just spent $6 million probably 10 years ago. They're looking at spending probably another $10 million on radio infrastructure. So it's kind of a small price tag to pay to become part of the state system.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to what the sheriff had said that St. Croix counties is a bigger number than 10, and Chippewa counties is a bigger number than 10. And so that is really a decision that the county that had made back, you said 2015, to join Wiscom.
Mhm.
It is really kind of working with the state and you being able to piggyback on the state infrastructure. And in addition to that, the state's providing 80% of the cost of the radios. So it's kind of it's the fruits of a decision of years ago that are really paying off
Paying off.
now.
Yep.
Sheriff, that's a pretty good deal and discount. It almost sounds too good to be true.
Right.
Is it the latest equipment and everything else?
Yeah, it's the latest equipment. It's actually, the portables will have Wi-Fi capability. So if we're in the schools, we can have schools set up a specific Wi-Fi for us that we can communicate inside the schools in an emergency, which right now we're dead in the water in a school in an emergency because our radios just won't penetrate the schools. So it's the latest and greatest in technology.
I have a quick question also.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that we've got 44 portables and 42 mobile radios. What's the difference between a portable and a mobile?
Mobile, it sounds just the opposite, but a mobile radio goes in the vehicle and
Okay.
a portable goes on your hip.
Okay. And then the second part of that question is that will these radios, since the other counties, Chippewa County and St. Croix and stuff, they're using, is this the same system they're gonna use? I mean, or will we out on our own?
Good question. We're always pursuing interoperability, we call it.
Yeah.
So every county around us can talk to us. They're supposed to be on our current system or have access to our current system. Some of them do, some of them don't.
Okay,
Melissa keeps our legacy frequency up and running, tied to our current frequency that we use daily because they have that frequency, so they can communicate on our old frequency connected to our new frequency. And so we currently run 2 mobile radios in every one of our squads for
Okay.
interoperability. So even to hear Menominee Police Department, we have to have 2 radios in our squad. In the same county, it's, but that's the goal. That was the goal in 2015 when we signed on to this Wiscom, is that it was supposed to be statewide interoperability. Not everybody bought into it at that time. But well, correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, but every dispatch center in the state is supposed to have access to these statewide frequencies. Not every squad car or fire truck does.
Mhm.
So.
Surrounding counties that we've mentioned today will be on the same technology, just not the same system. So they'll have the same technology, that 800 megahertz, but they'll have their own system. Dunn County is opting to stay on the Wiscom system, which is basically the state-owned system, and will just be a part of that network. So Chippewa, St. Croix, Pierce, I just talked to them today. They're looking also. I think their price tag was 22 million. So they'll have the same technology as us, but it will be a different system. Still able to communicate though.
Still be able to communicate.
Mhm.
I just didn't want to see a downside where we're kind of an island in our own, in a sea of communications.
We currently are today,
Okay.
and I think we still will be for a short period of time. I think we're on a little bit of a fast track compared to some of them other counties. I know the sheriff is hopeful for 2027, and I hope that that is the case, but I think we're honestly looking at the fall of 2028. of getting this whole thing completed, and the other counties are a little bit further out than that. So we will continue to be on an island, no different than we are today. If we are able to get our Wiscom system up and running by the fall of 2028, we'll still be on that same island, but it's nothing we haven't dealt with. And like Kevin said, we're still using our legacy system and trying to communicate, but they are all talking about going on the 800 megahertz technology, which would then make it much more easier for us to communicate.
Just a kind of a sideline, is the state patrol also going to be in this system and upgrading everything there and
Yes.
stuff too?
Technically, it was built for them, or,
Okay.
kind of built with them in mind, yeah. So State Patrol will be on it. There will be a little bit easier communication link when Dunn County goes to Wiscom. As the sheriff mentioned, it's hard to communicate with Menominee Police Department right now because they're on their own legacy system and not on the Wiscom system. They are joining us as a daily user in the 2028 project. And so it will be much easier to communicate with them come 2028 when we go to this new system. So that is one small improvement. We'll still kind of have to wait for a few of those surrounding counties to join. And not everyone is going to go 800 megahertz right away. It's expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. It's the newest technology, but it is the wave of the future. And Minnesota has been for years.
Okay. And another part of this question is that, does this improve our communication for emergency management communication, that kind of thing, how that all ties together in the event of a disaster?
So yeah, that's the interoperability part. It will help within our own county.
Okay.
Currently now, the sheriff's office runs off from the Wiscom system. The Menominee Police Department has their standalone system. Menominee Fire has their standalone system.
Okay.
And then the Dunn Fire EMS, which I run, has their own system. So we have that many channels just within our own little county.
Okay.
So if we have a large incident, the sheriff's department, they're wanting to operate on what they know how and what all of their units are trained to operate on. But yet some of our first responders, maybe some of our fire EMS, like maybe Boyceville, Oak Mound, they don't have that in their radios. And so it is hard to communicate. So then there's patching done by the dispatch center. So yeah, it will increase our ability in those large scale incidents that you just talked about to be able to communicate within Dunn County. Other agencies coming from outside of Dunn County in to help us, still a little bit of a roadblock, but we have communication plans we're always working on, and we make it work.
The one thing I'll point out is because we've been a daily user since 2015, we were able to bring on Menominee Police Department, Menominee Fire, all fire departments and EMS services in the county, and bring them on as daily users as well. So they're eligible for this grant as well.
I think when we applied for it, we had all agencies within Dunn County except 2 fire departments opted not to, and that was because of their match. They were unable to come up with the money for the match. We also extended the opportunity of some of our surrounding agencies to apply. We applied for them on their behalf because agencies like Elmwood Fire, Elmwood EMS respond into Dunn County. So they'll be getting the technology with us, which will be great because they service our community members. So they'll be ahead of the game when their county, Pierce County, goes 800 because they already have the radios because we helped them write the grant to get it. So I think it's a really good thing, and it's really been beneficial to learn that we're going to be able to all be on the same equipment.
My concern was just didn't want to be an island and everybody. Oh.
Yeah.
My concern was just that we didn't want to be an island and everybody else has got something else going on.
We are now, but we won't be soon.
All right.
One
Good.
one thing I would add, and I, as well, the sheriff, Melissa, and I have been a part of this in multiple different areas, but you will be seeing a budget amendment that will be going to the county board in July that came through judiciary and law. This grant that the sheriff is asking for his match for is the total match of that grant is about 400 and some thousand. And that's because that grant is for every one of those agencies within Dunn County. So So this is just our piece of the pie, but the total grant is what, $2.4 million. And so this is just what Dunn County Sheriff's Department costs. So that doesn't include Menominee and everybody else. So lots going on there. And I think an example of all of us working together and well, Melissa writing a grant in order to get everybody radios in the county.
Any other questions or a motion?
I do want to qualify one thing. I know this request is for 128,000 from the contingency fund. The contingency fund has 125,000. So you can't give them more than we have. The sheriff's aware of that. And
I'm gonna make Marcy pay for hers.
so, yeah.
So we would want a motion to approve the use of $125,000 of contingency funds.
I'll make a motion for that dollar amount.
I'll second it.
So for the approval of the use of $125,000 of contingency funds to match the daily use radio grant program, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion passes. So we will skip E for the moment and go to 8A. Approval to forward the amendment to Chapter 775, Code of Ordinances.
Yes, and thank you. And I apologize for the long staff report in there, but I realized that 2 of the 5 of you were not here when I spoke about the Tyler case last year in the board meeting. Essentially, what I wanted to do is I just want to bring our ordinance language or make it lawful is all I'm trying to do. The big 3 changes, and I modernized the language. That's why I kind of just did a rehash of it or rewriting of it. The big 3 changes are in current subsection 2, the 10% service fee is not lawful. We can't just willy-nilly add fees on to or take it away from a person. The second one, revised subsection 1 eliminates the committee's discretion whether to resell the property to the former owner. When the Tyler case passed Wisconsin, they did change the law, 75 point, geez, I have it in here. They changed it where we are required, if it's a single family home, we do have to offer it to the, I guess at that point, former owner first. So they've kind of a right of first refusal. That wasn't true before under Wisconsin statutes. And then number 3, this was an ask by my administrative assistant, Beth. It hasn't happened since I've been here, but apparently at times PR&D, when they consider this, they wouldn't put a deadline for that person to repurchase it, and she'd be sitting there 45, 50 days, whatever. It just makes it clear that by default, it's 30 days. Obviously, PR&D does have the discretion if somebody says, hey, I'm going to get a bonus check in 45 days. Can I have more time? They have the committee will still have that discretion to extend that to whatever time period they wish to.
Questions? Or a motion?
I'll move to approve that.
I'll second.
All right. So all those in favor of forwarding the amendment to Chapter 7.7.5 of Code of Ordinance to the board, say aye.
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 Opposed? No? All right. So then we will bump back up to our wonderful operational planning prioritization exercise. And Jenna will take it away.
Okay, good evening. As the handout is being passed around, I will just give a kind of a little bit of a background refresher on this process. So last meeting, which was in May, this committee had spent some time discussing the top threats or opportunities that relate to the services provided by the departments that are overseen by this committee. The purpose of that was to give kind of a lens for you all as you work through your review of the service catalog and prepare you for the discussion that we are hoping to have today. I will be walking you through an exercise that would first ask you to name services that you would consider a priority to think of priority as need to maintain it at its current level or even increase. And then also discuss services that you would be willing to review further for potential service level reduction or to explore other opportunities for different funding sources or if it's a fees-based program, things like that. So what you have in front of you, because we have over 30 services that this committee oversees, I didn't print out all of the service catalogs. You did get that provided via email. We also sent it with you last meeting. That is simply a list of the services that this committee oversees. You also see a column for the department that provides that service. And then also all the way to the right-hand side column provides what the current service level is. You also have a stack of the lime green Post-its. There are 5 of them. Those I will ask you just a few moments to work on identifying your priority services. So you would name 1 service per Post-it note. And I think because of the volume of services, I think it works best to have you start with that, and then we will discuss priorities, and then we'll move into the next phase in naming services for review. Does that sound like an okay plan? Okay. Absolutely, yes. Yep. So at this point, I would give as many minutes as you need to name your services on the green Post-its. When you are done, we will, I'll get my Post-it, my giant Post-it stuck up here on the wall, and then if you could place them on the Post-it, we will work together to put them in clusters and have discussion after that.
And for priorities, that can be things we want to make sure we can maintain as is or might need more funding.
Oh, do you?
So the good news is we appreciate that all of that our staff does across many different areas, which then leads us to many different options with very equalish votes. So Jen is going to give us little stickers and then we'll explain to us the next step. Because we want to narrow this down to 5 items-ish that we will label as our priorities for executive committee.
Okay, so first we'll go through what we have up here before we ask you to do a kind of a vote with your 3 stickers. We have 4 in a cluster for election administration. One of the larger common themes. 4 in a cluster for human resources management. And then 3 in a cluster for tax collection. And then the remainder, we have 2 of each. For cybersecurity, interdepartmental fiscal and operational support, budgeting grants and financial planning, accounting and reporting, and public communications. So since we are looking to narrow down to more like 5, would ask for you to come up and use your stickers to place any emphasis on some of the programs that you see up there that can help us identify a more clear common theme. And we are able to have discussion first if you'd like.
So just kind of,
Could you go over the categories again?
Absolutely.
All right.
Election administration with 4 mentions, HR management with 4 mentions, and then collection of taxes with 3. So those are really our only clear clusters at this point. We also have 2 for cybersecurity, 2 for interdepartmental fiscal operations, 2 for budgeting, grants, and financial planning, 2 for accounting and reporting, and 2 for public communication. And take as much time as you need to up here and placing your stickers. The ultimate goal is to have a more clear outcome and as much consensus from the committee as we can get.
before we start stickering, just want to see, do we want to take the 2 areas that have 4 votes each and say for sure, yes, those are going to be 2 of our priorities, and then use our stickers to kind of narrow down from the ones with 2 votes and the one with 3, or just look at the ones with 2 votes, or look at all of them and just sticker from there? What do you think?
I like kind of the first thing that you said. So for sure the 2 4s, and then maybe do the runoff voting for the 3s and the 2s.
Okay, so the election administration and human resource management will be 2 of the priorities. And then for the other 6 items, we have 3 stickers apiece, and we will see where we go from there.
A question on the 3 stickers. Can I put all my 3 stickers on one spot? Yeah, okay.
And the ones that moved to the right were ones that had single votes. So we were thinking drop those off.
Let me get this straight. I put these 3 stickers on the 4 vote things? or the non-4 vote things.
So we're gonna have, here's the 4 vote. We're
Yeah.
not gonna do them,
Okay,
but we've already taken care of them. They're gonna be,
okay.
we picked them. So now we take all the rest of these and decide,
Throw stickers on them.
yeah, one little yellow, or all 3, or 2 and 1. You can, just like
Okay.
when you're doing a silent, whatever it's called.
So only the ones on the sheet right now are what I need you to vote on that sheet up there.
So put a sticker, one of those 3 stickers on one of these items.
1 on each one, or 2 on one and
All
1
right.
on another.
Where you would like emphasis placed.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we've already got these 2.
Yeah,
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 it
gotta
helps to
do
have
that.
fingernails to get these
Oh,
off, I think.
there you
No, I'll get 'em, I'll
Okay.
get 'em.
Those, I don't know, are probably 20 to 30 years old. I found them in the supply closet. So hopefully they're still sticky.
Okay.
that's money,
You
that's
can
money.
read what I wrote?
Yeah, it's,
Wow.
your crayon's pretty sharp, actually.
Oh, that was a low one. Let's see what I got.
You're making up your own rules.
Just
I'm trying to
looking
memorize
at
what
his,
I wrote.
do it that way. Right, money, money.
Oh.
Oh.
Has everyone had a chance to place their stickers? Okay, so I think we do have a top 5. Collection of taxes became a clear priority in this process. Also, public communication and cybersecurity. So that leaves us again for our top 5: election administration, human resources, cybersecurity, collection of taxes, and public communications. What are thoughts about those 5? Does that resonate for you? Does it not? And why?
I think for me, I mean, everything is important. But there things for me like the human resource management, if we don't take care of our staff, then we end up with burnout, we end up with people leaving. So from my frame of mind, that's kind of why voted for that side. And same with like cybersecurity. If we don't keep our system safe, that may cost us more in the long run. So, anyone else want to share?
Can't get it to work unless you got money coming in. So taxes, grants,
Mm-hmm.
and an administration of that money, whether it's through finance or however you guys, how you want to pull it together. But that, for me, that's the main thing, because if it doesn't work, no money, nothing happens.
Emphasize your comment, Michelle, long-term. A lot of this look long-term. It might not save us anything right now, but it does long-term. So that's one of the things that kind of fit into my decision-making.
I wanted to say that I was really pleased that public communications rose to the top. I think that's really important. And I think that comparatively, we're not spending maybe that much on it. And I think it has a big return on public perception of what's going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a high return on investment. That's not a dollar amount, but the public trust and good feelings.
Not to say that was the easy part. None of this is easy, right? But perhaps the more challenging part would be that I would ask you to identify five and naming five services that you feel that you are open to reviewing further, potentially for a service level reduction at some point. That's not to say you're naming this and it's immediately being reviewed for cutting as soon as 20. That is not the intent. As Supervisor Kinnear mentioned, this is intended to help be a long-term tool for us to glean some guidance from. So I will allow as many minutes as you need to name a service on each of the 5 orange Post-it notes, and I will have a new sheet up here for you to place them on the wall.
And I think thinking about it also, maybe the potential service reduction, or can we look at ways to make this more sustainable by revenue generation? If there's fees that could be increased, not necessarily always cutting, but maybe we can increase what it brings in, I think is a good way to look at things too.
All right. So the most clear identification was for dog licenses in the county clerk's office, but I'd like to have some discussion about that first. As far as how it's funded and at what level we're mandated to provide it at. So I know we do have the county clerk here as well, if you want to join the party.
I would like to officially say I would love to get rid of dog licensing. However, state statutes do dictate that the county clerk's office is responsible for collecting all funds related to dog licensing. We order all the materials, the licenses, the receipt books, and provide that to the 30 municipal treasurers in Dunn County, and they are responsible for issuing and collecting all the dog licenses yearly. If you haven't licensed your dog, you should do that. Essentially, then what happens is twice a year, the treasurers report that information to the county clerk's office. At the end of the year, we submit a report to the state. It's a checks and balances thing. We submit the report to the state, and then we actually take the overall money that's contributed to us. We reduce it by the amount of dog tags that we need to order for the next year, and then we reimburse the treasurers that money. For sometimes it depends on the municipality. Sometimes the municipality has dictated that the reimbursement funds go directly to the treasurer as kind of like a, not as a bonus, but as a payment for having to process the dog licenses. Some of it just goes back into the municipal general fund. It's listed as a better service just because we go a little bit above and beyond what some counties do, but we can certainly look at reducing that and putting it more on the onus of the municipal treasurers. Does that make sense? It's a checks and balances reporting thing that the state statutes say that we have to do. Supervisor Lino?
Yeah, I got just a quick question. Now, when I submit my money for my, dog license, tax, that kind of thing, they also have rabies information, all that kind of stuff has to be on file for that dog also. Now, is this something that you guys handle, or is that strictly done on the treasurer's side in the municipality?
Currently, it's done by both. The treasurers report all that information so that if there's a lost dog, they could call the county clerk's office and we could easily identify, oh yeah, it's dog license tag number 60249, which is from the town of Dunn. That belongs to blah, blah, blah. We can certainly not provide that. I mean, that's something that we do spend quite a bit of time tracking and monitoring, and we could just refer all that information back to the municipal treasurer's office and say, they issue the licenses, they've got that information. That's something that we could easily do because they are required to do it anyway.
Okay. So now this is kind of roundabout with it in dealing with animals and dogs, but let's say your dog bites somebody. And they want to know, is your dog vaccinated? Yes or no? Does this go to legal? This information go to legal? Is that part of their system?
So there is a certain amount of money that's set aside in the dog fund that that individuals, if they are, I'm gonna forget the exact terminology, but it's basically like oh gosh, animal violence sounds drastic. That's not what it's called. But essentially, if there's an incident with an animal that a person could seek restitution out of the funds that are collected from that money. So there's a certain amount that's set aside for that. I think we're legally required to keep about $1,000 just in case someone ever was to seek restitution. In the 5 years I've been here, it's never happened. And we went back and did this research project, and I think the last time it was requested was 2006 or 7. So, yeah.
So it's not that big of a deal.
Not typically.
All right.
But this program, as well as many others on our list, if we reduce the service level, it pushes the burden to the municipalities.
Yes. However, I would be happy to go to the state legislature and tell them that my county does not prioritize this as a way to take it out of the county clerk's office. However, the municipalities do have to collect all this information anyway. It is a state statute. So really, I'm happy with keeping that a priority. That sounds great. It's still a state statute that we have to do it, but we can certainly drop the service level and save some time and potential money for election administration allocation, for example. We can certainly do that.
And I would add, I mean, I think that's ultimately what ends up happening when you talk about dog licensing. It's a small portion of a person's job or a couple of people's job within the clerk's office. So even if you were to eliminate that service from a financial standpoint, it's nothing. It's reallocating that resource towards elections or other services like that.
We're probably looking at a total allocation throughout the year of maybe 25 hours of time between the two collections and then the reporting to the state. So it's really not a lot.
So if we want to prioritize elections, we can take those 25 hours a year and move them over.
I didn't say that, but yes, that we could look at that.
Okay, so that was really the main one that had clear consensus. We also have three more that have 2 mentions each. The next being county management, administrative functions. This would be in the county clerk's office, and this is for things like agendas and minutes and postings and working with the county board members. Is that fair? A fair summary? Okay. And budgeting, grants, and financial planning. The remainder up here, we have 1 mention each. So I do think we should do another round of voting with the stickers to get a little bit more clear consensus.
Jenna, could I ask a question first?
Yes, of course.
Jim, now, one of those up there probably was, I think I saw zoning enforcement. Was that up there?
I did too.
Now, we're talking zoning enforcement from Corp Council. We're not talking zoning enforcement from someplace else. How often do you get involved in that?
Probably not since I've taken over. I do see files where every couple of years, zoning generally really tries to work with the homeowner, the property owner, to gain compliance with the zoning statutes. So I know Tammy has a couple that she's working on right now. I know on my predecessor's last day, he had a hearing regarding an issue that was in that ballpark. But it's not a frequent thing we do. I almost wonder whether that's more zoning enforcement from the zoning folks from that department as opposed to mine.
And if maybe Dan or Jenna, both you could answer this, if something like that comes up rarely, is it more cost effective just to hire it done, or is it just, well, go ahead and have his office do it, or what?
Yeah, I was gonna say from that, I do have a line item in the budget for hiring outside counsel, and that's in part because it is so infrequent that neither myself nor Barb would consider ourselves experts, and we'd want the help of outside assistance.
So with that, that's kind of the basic level anyway. If we have to do it, you'd hire someone else who has the knowledge.
Correct.
And we have to hire someone if you have to do it some way, shape, or form if it comes up.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly. It's a necessary service, but it's not a frequent one.
Is there anything else up there like that?
Real estate tax prep. Does anyone want to speak to that mention? Otherwise, we do have property addressing up there. I've learned a bit about that, and we do have our land information officer here, but my understanding is that is essentially fully funded through fees.
So I think similar to when we talked about dog licensing, so the paying for the signs and administering that, or paying for the signs and kind of the hardware related to that is all funded. There is some additional cost that's built in for the overhead. I think whether it covers the overhead is debatable. It's close, but ultimately you're probably talking about 5 to 10% of an employee that is doing other work when they're not doing this. So I like to look at that as it is a little bit of additional revenue offsetting that that position either way. It is something that we are required by our local ordinance to do. And it does have some advantages as we do that locally. So it's something that could get pushed back to towns, once again. But by centralizing the coordination of that allows for better tracking of those records, specifically as it relates to 911 and getting the address points out to our emergency responders, where if you had 30 municipalities all trying to follow the same process to get that information back, there would be 30 different processes, maybe more.
And I think a part of what's making this so hard is a lot of these services are required at a basic level. And if we're not doing it, we're pushing it to the municipalities, or we're hiring out outside counsel. So most of this work needs to get done. It's just, or somebody's doing it as a little part of their job. It's not a major thing. So it's hard to find something in that little bit of basket weave of where can we pull a little thread when not much here is a big bucket.
Yeah.
So the real estate tax prep, I think the reason it's in the better category is that we do offer for 13 municipalities that we do the mailing and the postage and stuff, but we do charge them a fee based on the number of parcels that we print tax bills for. So we have a generated income of 30,000 with a little extra work that's involved in that. So I don't know that it would net out to be a positive in the end. It may be actually a negative, but it is a better service.
Yeah, so if you stop doing that for them, you stop getting the revenue. We've kind of broken even anyway.
Yes. The fees are set by parcel. I think they're at like, we raised them last year by 25 cents. So I think we're at like 250 versus 225 a parcel. And we're mandated to do second installment collections, so.
I can name the rest off, or if you want, we can kind of break from discussion and you can come take a look before we would perhaps do another round of voting. Any preferences? I know it's hard to follow along if I'm just rattling them off.
I kind of liked it. We just had a couple of explanations from people.
Mhm.
And there's not that many up there that we would have to go through. Maybe you can give us some explanations or have somebody else come up.
Okay.
So I know
Okay.
one that's up there is purchasing. I believe this one made both sides of the board at one point too. So that is a new position that we created in the last budget cycle, was a purchasing coordinator. And that came out of our planning for the ERP as a kind of a request from the pit crew that was doing the work related to that. And it was really, we look at it as a way to increase our efficiencies in the purchases that we make. I can give an example. The shredding and confidential documents that we have, similar to what we had done a few years ago with purchasing, but our purchasing coordinator has identified 30 plus contracts throughout the county at different rates. We would pay for the company to come to Dunn County 5 or 6 times a day, because each contract had a charge to come to the county and then an additional charge to take the paper. And if that were one contract, we would only get charged for them to drive here once. But since we had multiple contracts, they were charging us every time for for every contract, right? And so that's really just having that role that's looking at things from a centralized standpoint to see if we're getting the best bang for our buck in all of those purchases. So that's that position. I think Jordan's been here for 5 months now. So that's just one of the items that he's brought up, and it's really just looking at how we're making all of those purchases and making sure that we're making the right choices. And it's impossible for one department to know what another department is doing without, sending out an email. Hey, did anybody do this? Before every single purchase. So that's really what that role is all about.
Another one we have up here is infrastructure, and then it is noted extend replacement cycles. We do have our IT director here if you want to kind of speak to what infrastructure is and the potential impacts of a lower service level.
So I think I talked infrastructure last time too. So infrastructure is also kind of tied in with cybersecurity in a way that we have two people in that position, and their job is really a lot of what they spend their time on is patching the systems as well. So we get new systems, and then we want to make sure that those systems are not vulnerable on the network. So we make sure that they spend a lot of time keeping them up to date, keeping them patched on the network. Infrastructure is also the wireless that we have. If we didn't have wireless, we wouldn't have your tablets, wouldn't be able to bring up the things like that. The network, the things that you don't see are kind of the things behind it. And then in the life cycle side of things, we typically try to go 5 to 7 years for replacements for servers or infrastructure. We definitely could stretch that up to 7 years if we wanted to, but typically we scope things out to be a 5-year replacement. It's because after year 5, that product is no longer supported. And if it's no longer supported from the vendor, we can't get security patches from it to patch it on the network. And then it just becomes, it's like, yeah, it's up to date on its latest security patches, but it's 2 years old and we can't patch it any farther. It's just a security vulnerability at that point. So, but there's things that we can look at within that to see if there's things we could scale back.
I'd add a little bit as it relates to extending the lifetime of a lot of these types of equipment. You think about like a truck, right? I want to extend the life of that truck. You can kind of gamble whether it's going to need repairs or not, or you can get those repairs. Well, IT companies have gotten smart. The hardware that actually runs these things is a small fraction of the cost of the overall system. What you're paying for is the license to be able to run it. So extending the life in a lot of cases is, sure, you can extend it into year 6, but you're going to pay 3 times the licensing costs that you would have paid if you just bought a new one. So they encourage you to kind of recycle on their schedule. So, and their reasoning for that is they don't have to maintain 10 different versions of this product if we get
they want to force you to the new cycle, the new product.
So they can stop supporting that old stuff. So it doesn't really work in a lot of cases, or it's cost prohibitive to extend the life.
Yeah, and I put that and I don't really like it anyway. But just thinking, if you go to a 6 or 7 year instead of a 5 or 6, the payout's not today. You're looking at, we're talking capital improvement where it's going to be a long-term transition before we see the savings, but I don't like any of the things I had to put up there, but except dog license.
Tech support, our other service that's consists of 3 members of the ITT team. They do the day-to-day work. If you call support for your tablet not working, that's who answers and responds. They're just kind of the day-to-day, putting the fires out. The systems engineers are the infrastructure side. They're more towards building us and, keeping things up to date and that sort of thing. So, with the support side, we did try to expand, some revenue. We've expanded that support to the city of Menominee and a couple other agencies to help, bring in revenue and be able to support them as well. So, I guess any questions on support? Is there anything you want clarified on that?
Can we just charge the city more?
I'd love to. I tried and Dan shot me down. We are looking at other municipalities. I know there's a lot of them that don't have dedicated support. So Colfax has reached out. I think they emailed you as well. And we're at the point where I'd love to, but we don't have the bandwidth really to keep offering support to these other municipalities without degrading the county services more. So, yeah.
I guess when I put items up there, it's kind of what I was thinking was how can we, not necessarily reduce service levels, but I think the tech support is a good example of how to maybe centralize, the idea of, offering tech support to the municipalities throughout the county for a fee. I think that's kind of the direction that I was thinking for many of these things. A lot of these things we've talked about are things that need to happen. So, how do we make them more efficient? Can we sort of help the municipalities around the county by sort of offering an additional service to bring in revenue for the county and take something off the plates of the municipalities that, they may not have the bandwidth to deal with? That's kind of where I'm coming from with this because, none of these things I want to see degraded, but, how can we do it a little bit differently, more efficiently, things like that. And so I just want to call out the tech support piece as like a prime example of, I think, something that we should consider.
Well, and maybe looking at if we do expand the services, maybe there's another staff needed, but can that salary be offset by contracts for the municipalities? So is it worthwhile financially to increase staffing if we can get that reimbursed?
I would also add there's some state funding out there for
Consolidation of services. Yeah.
consolidations.
Yep.
There's a few up here, I think, that are managed by the Corporation Counsel Office that we can have some discussion on. One of them being open records requests. And I am in the loop on these, so I can just give a little bit of background, but we are required, because we are a county, to have open records and comply with applicable state statutes as it relates to those. The time spent on this really depends on the volume of the requests, but I can tell you that they have been voluminous, at least within the last 2, 3, 4 years. This requires compiling the records, finding them, what exists, but then Jim can speak to the process that his staff is involved in.
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying I have not hired extra staff to assist in this. So there's been no extra hiring. Depending on the type of request, actually, I was working on one today involving a request for files for an employee. Sometimes that's related to maybe personal things going on in their life. More often than not, I've noticed defense attorneys really like to get as much as they can about the officer or officers who were maybe involved in their client's alleged crime. But regardless, when it comes to employee requests for information, I need to review all the records in there. Some can be excluded. They can't get medical records. They can't get certain things. Redactions take some time. I usually utilize Beth to assist in that. But then I also have to notify the employee because they have a right to object to items being released as well. So it is time consuming, but it's absolutely required under Wisconsin law. If I just refuse to comply with those, it would be an easy lawsuit to file against the county. So it is time consuming at times. Sometimes it's an easy request, but I can assure you that I've not hired or had overtime work done in order to respond to those.
And at the same time, if we had to hire outside counsel, they'd be less familiar with the systems and processes and may cost more to do the open record request.
That's correct. And so far I haven't even considered hiring outside counsel for it. That's been manageable enough. Again, sometimes time consuming, but manageable. I guess I could foresee if there was some possible major litigation against the county, it might be such a voluminous request, I would utilize them to assist me with it.
Okay, so we also have in-rem property mentioned and general legal services, as well as labor relations and employment. I don't know, are there specific questions about either of those services that Jim can answer for you?
In rem property and really all of your legal services, is that something that could be contracted out or partnered with another county?
Yes, it could be contracted out. It could be. I don't think in-rem property would be one that I'd consider doing right now, as we do get any costs that go into it. We get it from the homeowner should they purchase it back, or if we
Okay.
sell it elsewhere, we get our full costs.
Okay.
The earlier piece we did, we can't charge, I won't say mindless, but random fees in addition, but we do get all our costs for that. The labor relations one, I so far haven't had to be involved with that, but we do have a contract that expires at the end of this year, so I assume I might get involved in that a little bit eventually. What was the third one, Jen?
General legal services.
Yeah, that one I think is kind of the day-to-day. I get calls or emails from various department managers asking about legal issues that I address, or if I have to look into it, I look into it and address it. So I felt it was worth noting that it's something I do. In fact, some days I feel like that's all I do, is answering questions and assisting various departments with concerns they have.
But all of your services are your department intertwined. It's not like this person does this person does that.
That's correct. With the exception, I would say that right now, Barbara handles all the chapter 51s and guardianships and whatnot. She gets assistance from Beth, and certainly I assist when she has questions, but she's been doing it for 15 years, so that's a pretty rare event. But other than that, I kind of look at it as the courtroom is her area of expertise and mine is kind of everything else.
I think somewhat to your question, you close your ears, Jim. No, so corporation councils, there are counties that don't have on-staff corporation counsel. They would contract with a law firm in order to do that. It doesn't take too many hours to make that not financially the right decision.
Okay.
The rates that a lawyer would charge. We know some around that do that. So in general,
Okay.
as you look at corporation counsel, having them on staff is likely the most inexpensive way. However, there is specialized needs that will require outside counsel, and that's at Jim's discretion.
And so far, I've been here since September of 24. I have not utilized outside counsel for anything. So that was a line item in my budget that I didn't touch last year.
And if we have enough work to fill your day, we'd be paying a lawyer 40 hours a week.
It's a gamble, really, because maybe some weeks you wouldn't spend that many hours, then the next week, who knows what comes flying in.
And we wouldn't be doing any proactive ordinance changes. We wouldn't be doing any proactive policy setting. It would be all reactive.
Yeah, I think you would find a lot of Jim does a lot of contract review that would likely just not be done if you were to have hired outside counsel. It wouldn't make sense. You'd just take on some more risk in that regard.
So Jim, there were 3 people in your department, weren't there? And you haven't filled the one position
That's
was
correct.
resigned? And how long has that been since the person resigned?
I believe it was early May.
Okay.
As of right now, I'm on hold. I'm just kind of waiting and seeing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think that about covers it. There is a mention up here of the involuntary commitments and guardianships. You did mention that service. Any context around the level of mandate and what the options would be for that? If
That is mandated for at least the county to provide that. So that would be the big chunk of money were we to go with outside counsel, because Barb's oftentimes in court 20 or more hours just about every week. So that would be probably the thing you'd least want to contract out.
There are counties that hire that and contract out the other.
I don't know that that made this any easier.
Can I ask about some things that aren't on the list that I was
Yeah.
considering, and now that we're seeing that everything's important?
Mhm.
Sorry, Andrew. What about marriage license and termination? Would the world end if we degraded the service on that a little bit?
As the person who's perpetually against marriages in the first place, I would have no problem. So we are required to issue marriage licenses. It's in the state of Wisconsin, state statute. There's really, we can charge more, essentially. Like if you were to prioritize a way in which to do that, there are several counties that have gone to increasing their funds or their fees for that. Currently, our office in the Dunn County's clerk's office, we charge $100 for a marriage license fee. Part of that is state required payments that go out. Part $20, 25 of it goes to the state, $20 of it goes to the clerk of courts for future services they might need to be used for. And then the rest of it is collected by the county clerk's office to offset funds for the use of the time of the staff to issue marriage licenses. We are in our busy season for that, but there are several counties that have gone above and beyond $100. Dane County, I think, is now up to 175. Just because of inflation and everything like that that's associated with it. So if that were to be a priority, we could certainly look at increasing the funds. We did go from $90 to $100 2 years ago. So we could easily bump that up to $125 as a way to bring in additional funds. We get roughly 260 to 325 marriage licenses a year, depending on that. So if you take an extra $25 times 261, there is some additional funds there that would be available. But
Okay.
And an individual can get a license in any county in Wisconsin.
yes, a change to the statute made that possible. Before, you had to get your license in the county in which you reside. So
So what do our neighbors charge?
Chippewa is at 90, Eau Claire's at 125. Pepin is at 75. There's 4 people that live in Pepin, but so I mean, it really kind of depends. It's all over the cross board. But we have had a discussion about standardizing pricing across the County Clerks Association, but we're not ready to go to 175 like Dane County. So, so that would be a way in which we could bring in funds to prioritize ways to do that.
But Eau Claire being the biggest at 125 might be
Regionally.
a price setter.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, that would be something easily we can do. We have the draft resolution to increase the fee for that. We'd have to do that probably starting for 2027, but that would be for the 2027 budget. So that would help out that. The other thing, just since I'm up here, there was one about, what was it? Something about county clerk, something else.
Administrative functions?
Administrative functions. I can certainly cut that back and have you all book your own hotel rooms and your own conference fees and then be reimbursed for that through finance. That sounds great. So, I mean, we can certainly look at doing that. We can cut the Sunshine Fund. We cannot have treats at County Board anymore. It's not a threat. It's just a step. It's just a statement. No, it's mostly the administrative things about putting the packets together, records retention, which we are required to do. But we can certainly look at changing that as a function. We do spend quite a bit of time on that, and but we can certainly reprioritize that if that's necessary.
I mean, I feel like booking our own conference rooms and stuff like that, that seems okay to me as a way to save money.
Do we get a better discount if we room block altogether?
Typically. So
Yeah.
for like the Wisconsin Counties Association Conference this September, I booked everybody's room or everyone in the same room block so that we can all be in the same hotel. So we would risk, that, but it's something that we provide as a service. We also provide additional services for the county board chair, just with scheduling of different components and also conference attendance and whatnot. So yeah, So, and that's a service we're happy to provide, but we can certainly look at prioritizing or reducing that from a better to a basic. So I got anything else? Questions for your county clerk?
I do have a question to the general group here. Is if we look at this list, are all of these things on the list state mandated?
Most,
Most of them are. Are there some that are not?
well, most things have to be done by somebody somewhere. Might be a municipality, it might be us, it might be outside council. So I think that's the biggest thing. If some of these, if we don't do them, the municipality is doing it.
Okay.
So we'd be pushing it on them.
I was just kind of looking some way to winnow things a little bit.
I think if you look at specifically the function of administration, so admin, finance, HR, IT, if you were to do any sort of a decrease to that, you're not going to, there's no mandate to do any of those things that you say. That's just things that have to get
No
done.
statute, so to speak.
Right. I think what you end up running into is more risk, right? So you're either going to have overburdened people that are going to be skipping steps, or you don't have the right, you don't have enough. Ultimately, you don't have enough people, so things get missed. Things fall through the cracks. And so that's, I think it's a level of risk to me from an administrative standpoint when you start decreasing those services. It isn't that you're going to not meet a state statute. You just might end up, I gave the example of purchasing before, right? If you don't do that, you end up spending more money.
Yeah.
You would never know that until you looked at it in a different way, though. So, and then outside of the administrative functions, you get corporation counsel. We talked a little bit about that, and then treasurer's office and county clerk are constitutional.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, do 'em.
Well, just a thought.
Yeah.
May I? In looking at it, it seems like anything you cut, it allows the person to focus more on other parts of their job. And I think of Jim's job, I think of some of the jobs in the Environmental Services Department. It seems like over the years, their duties accrue and grow.
Mhm.
And all these little things that they've done that really aren't assigned, but it's come part of their job. So saying don't do that, pretty hard.
Mm.
And then put your time in this other spot. Well, if someone comes over to Jim and says, gee, we've got this problem, is he gonna look on his list and say, oh, well, that's not one of the things I do anymore. It just can't happen like that, because that's part of his job, is to handle things that haven't come up before. The same thing applies to all kinds of other things. So the question is if all these just reprioritize their time, or maybe even can't, what are we doing?
We're not saving anything if it's,
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
yeah, because with the departments being so small, people are wearing many, many hats within the department. So,
Sorry to pick on you, Jim, but
Mhm.
your department's perfect.
let's stick with our priorities and just not do the things to review.
Can I ask about another one? I apologize if I missed it. Property information management. I know we talked about addressing. Did we talk about property information management? The reason that I'm asking about it is I think I saw that the county currently doesn't receive funding for providing that service, and I was wondering if municipalities could be charged a fee to recoup some of that?
I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like it is typical that the only municipalities that take on the responsibilities tend to be larger ones. City of Milwaukee, City of Eau Claire, Appleton. As far as charging for the services, I think that most of the specific, like tangible things that you can think of, like maybe like printing of reports and things like that, for sure cannot be, because that's information that's required to be provided to the municipalities. It's definitely something I could look into. I don't know of a county that does it. And that's potentially because it's not required. I know currently it's our county ordinance that we take on that responsibility. I could certainly look into it. I am not aware of a single county that does do it. It's a pretty vital thing, and it's a very like specialized service. To ask a municipality to do that would be a pretty large financial expense that would be pushed to them. But I can definitely look into
Well,
that.
I mean, it's not really sounding that promising. So,
Yeah.
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 Okay.
I feel like if it was something that could be charged for, it would be something that's
Sure.
talked about very commonly. That doesn't mean it's not possible.
Sure.
So.
All right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I think this is one of those things that like, yeah, we could make the municipalities do it, but that's not gonna look good
Right.
on. We may save a few dollars, but it's
Mhm.
gonna hurt the county fiscally overall.
And I think to Supervisor Gant's point earlier, as we look at the municipalities, they are overmatched in not just in their numbers, but the complexity that we see within the county is also happening at the town level. And that's typically one person. And so
One part-time person.
yeah, and so a lot of what we're doing in the clerk's office, in the treasurer's office, in the land information office is essentially helping that person so that they can do their work. Rachel.
Yeah.
Addressing.
Yeah, so maybe this is helpful. So as part of priority-based budgeting last year, addressing was identified as an area to potentially increase revenue, right? So not even like 3 months ago, we did increase fees, and it was like the first time it was done in almost 15 years. So there has been an increase in revenue there that is already effective in the current budget. But another item that was identified, and it kind of speaks to what Supervisor Gens had mentioned, is offering addressing to the municipalities. So we currently only provide addressing services to the towns. Villages and the city are their own addressing authority. That being said, we do receive not a ton of questions, but we do help municipalities like small villages often, and we don't charge them for it. We just want to help solve the problem. And because ultimately, if they don't get assistance, right, then there's the potential issue that calls aren't being routed properly. Address information is missing within the assessment records and potentially leading to misassessments. So we provide the service. We don't ask for anything. We thought about potentially offering a service, an optional service that could recoup some revenue for that time, right? We would be the service provider for addressing. There would be time spent in assessing the current situation of their addressing grid and circumstances. So there would be some setup time that I imagine that would go into that. But then the residents could contact us for those services and shift that work here since we're already touching it at some point anyhow. So that is something like I would be willing to look at further. I would still think that it would be an optional service for a municipality and that they would get a say in it, right? Street names are important in municipalities and things like that. And, everything would be carefully considered. So if that is something that would maybe help narrow something down, I'd be willing to look at what that might look like. Again, an optional thing, because I don't know that necessarily we can tell an incorporated municipality that we're their addressing authority. But we could potentially have a contracted service memorandum of understanding that will do this. Because we're already doing it anyhow.
I feel like that makes sense.
So Cody, you've already been mentioned a couple times. What you said earlier about cooperate, help municipalities, consolidate services, make things more efficient. That's kind of what you're just talking about, Rachel, and it kind of one of the things that has kind of come up here is a key item.
I do think this has been great discussion. It is jumping a few steps ahead. Really, tonight, we're just wanting to identify, let's look into that more. But I think we've been able to sort through some of the weeds and have fruitful discussion. So I didn't want to cut it off. But I do think at this point, if you're open to it, we would do another round of voting. If we're all okay with dog licensing remaining, I will take that off. But if you could place your stickers on the remaining Post-it notes here to help us identify a top or 5 areas to dig into further, I would ask you to do that now.
Can we add a sticky note for marriage licenses?
Yeah, there's no rules. The committee
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
agrees.
And is the addressing one, is there a note up there for that?
There is.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
And then Cody said something about centralizing tech support. Is there a sticky note for that?
There is a sticky note for tech support, yes.
Got it. Okay, great. I threw you up there.
So, oh, so. Gonna go.
Okay, so we have, well, dog licenses we talked about already. But as the result of the second round voting, additional mention of marriage licensing, to look into that further, perhaps increasing the fees. Tech support, I think the idea there was looking into more intergovernmental relationships, property addressing. Then we also have budgeting, grants, and financial planning. And I don't know that we had any discussion on this one. Would like to ask for some context around why you voted for that one or what your thoughts are.
I did not vote for that one, but it makes me think it might be worth reviewing our overhead costs and the grant language and seeing if there's more additional opportunities for recovering some of that overhead. And maybe that's, additional time spent in there to find the additional funds. But that wasn't my vote in case anyone else has a.
Yeah, I think that's something we could take a look at, some efficiencies there. I know Sarah's been wonderful over the years, coming up with money out of nowhere, which is greatly appreciated for her side of things. But I think also that I think review that on a regular basis. You know, our money managements and that kind of thing. I know we've just done that and we're seeing some savings from it already. And I'm thinking that I think we've kind of done that already. So maybe there's another aspect that I'm not seeing.
So there was 2 Post-it notes and 2 stickers, so there's more of you. I do know that I've heard a lot around grants management and potential around really an investment in grants in order to try to get more of them, right? So it's a as we talk about a lot of these reviews, we're looking at savings, and this is really an investment into future savings. If that's if I can read into some of those dots.
I think this is another case where let's hire a new person that all they do is grants and they can find X amount of money to make their salary worth it.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you have to be able to justify that.
Right. Well, and I think that's something that we can certainly don't get too far down the path, but I think that as we look at grants and how we've managed them in the past, so not all grants have necessarily the administrative costs as a side effect. But I also think that we have not been, we don't have any policies or procedures related to whether we are going to capture those administrative costs and utilize them for the administrative costs that they have.
Right. And you just reminded me, they just recently changed the rate from 10% to 15% for some things. So even just looking if a lot of grants would have had that number set in there for ones that allow the recovery of administrative. But with the change, maybe there would be some options where we could up it to the new 15% standard from the 10. But that all depends contract to contract, what they say.
Right. And that's where I think historically, a lot of, even if we do claim the 15%, the 15% isn't coming, or the 10% isn't coming back to pay for the person doing the financial work. It's, in a lot of cases, was put back into the service. And so looking at how we do that.
So I'll recap the areas identified for review. And then I think that will conclude. Again, dog licensing, marriage licensing, tech support, property addressing, and budgeting, grants, and financial planning. Any concluding thoughts on that, or concerns about that being the outcome of this?
I'll just say my takeaway, I think, is with most of those, it's not about cutting, but maybe finding additional revenue or efficiencies.
So, and as we look at these services, and I do think that the admin, maybe it's just because it's the committee that especially most closely related with, is a hard one, that there are a lot of services that have to get done. But really, as we go from committee to committee to committee, this is always a challenge. It's hard to find those services that we want to make compromises in, because I think Supervisor Kinnear brought it up earlier. It's like there's been additional work that's been added, and to say don't do that anymore is, it's hard to say it. It's either harder to put into practice when somebody comes up and asks you to do this. Well, last year you did it. Yeah, well, we're not doing that anymore. But I think as we look at that, I mean, our potential to grow is not there. And we really have to look at, and that's really what this exercise is like, where are some of those really hard decisions that we can make to sometimes accept what we don't want to be true. It's really, what can you accept?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, as I kind of think back in the history of being on the board and stuff, and I remember we've kind of did this similar type of thing of, 4 or 5 years ago. And I was just wondering if there's a possibility to come up with those old records to see if we have some kind of merge between those two, to see if this is some kind of long-term possible thing to kind of give us a little better direction to what we've done in the past. That's all.
Yeah, I can look for that. I do think I found those old files.
Usually don't talk about it out loud.
The last directional plan, I think the initial adoption was 2017, and there was an amendment in 2018. So
Yeah.
I can look for those working materials.
Yeah, there was a prioritization process that had gone through, and I believe that was at a departmental level, and that's where we've broken this up. It's more down to the programmatic level as opposed to departmental, but certainly there's some synergy to be found in that.
July 16th. So just over 2 weeks.
No, I will find it. I'm interested. I'm invested. So I will definitely look for that. Yeah.
And will you give us just a little bit of the next steps?
Yes. So what I would be looking to do for each standing committee, and I do have, I won't share a template with you, but have started to do is summarize the work that each committee has done, highlighting the top 2 threats and opportunities that were named, also providing context around the priority areas that were named, and also the areas that were named for review. The intention of that summary from each standing committee is to be provided to the executive committee to either use or not use in their process for identifying a balanced budget for 2027, but also to provide staff with direction maybe for the next year or two or so as it relates to the whichever services that there could be room for review or potential reduction. Our preference is for that to happen slowly. We're not looking for any major drastic changes for 2027, but ultimately to use this as more of a longer term planning document is the hope. At its baseline, if all else fails, hopefully it was at least educational for the existing and new committee members throughout that were onboarded in April. So we've gone through a lot of information since then, and I hope it was at least educational.
And acknowledging each committee sent forward a different amount of priorities and reviews based on the number of programs. So we have a lot. So that's why we had to do more.
I'm trying to memorize the calendar with this meeting moved to a different week.
So
The-
in
the
July,
world
we will
has
be on
moved.
our new set date of the
Yeah.
second Thursday.
So, I believe
Third
you
Thursday.
will be seeing departmental budgets at the July 16th meeting.
Okay.
So you will see that kind of that, I believe it's at that one.
That only gives us, actually, okay, budgets are due July 10th. The agenda would go out around July 9th or 10th, so I don't think we really have time to pull. I mean, we could do whatever the committee asks, but it'd probably be more likely.
Well,
It's too late.
the budget,
Maybe we have to move up August.
the agenda can go out
Mhm.
and the budgets can be provided in the in-between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Okay.
yeah, just so you know, that's kind of the plan. We usually get budgets in the July, August type time frame to get that done. Want the committees to see them before we do the August budget workshop. So, and I think the budget workshop's probably the week before our next or a week after our next meeting. So, those two.
All right. So next meeting date, Thursday, July 16th at 4:30 here. Anything else before we adjourn? Everyone wants to go home? We will call it a night and we will see you in a couple weeks.